Silently running our homes and our hobbies is this vast, hidden infrastructure of technology. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive into a genuinely nostalgic journal entry by an author named Aang, all about their aquatic adventures. But honestly, this isn't just a story about fish. No way. It's a story about loyalty, mechanical endurance, and the literal hidden heartbeat of our passions. Okay, let's dive into this. 256. Now, that's not just some random digit pulled out of thin air. That is the actual entry number of Aang's ongoing journal titled Notes on Fishkeeping. This number is absolutely crucial because it instantly tells us we are stepping into a deeply, deeply established world. We're not hearing from someone who just brought home a goldfish in a plastic bag yesterday. We are dropping right into part 256 of a veteran hobbyist's daily life. It really sets the stage, you know? It lets us know that the insights we're about to unpack come from years and years of trial, error, and just really dedicated observation. And because of that deep history, Aang writes about this absolutely battle-tested veteran air pump that was bought, quote, many moons ago. Think about the emotional, nostalgic hook right there. This wasn't just any piece of equipment off the shelf. This specific pump was bought as an extra accessory for Aang's very first tank, way back when they first got into fish keeping. It has literally been the mechanical heartbeat of their entire setup since day one. Just hearing the phrase many moons ago instantly paints this picture of a loyal, tireless little machine, buzzing away in the background, outlasting fish, plant life, and, let's be real, probably several room rearrangements. But as we all know, every tool has its limit. After an incredibly long, dutiful life spanning all those moons, this battle-tested veteran finally reached the end of the road. Aang actually treats its final demise with this genuine touch of solemn reverence, and honestly, it's kind of hard not to feel a bit of empathy for the little guy. It's a totally universal experience, isn't it? We all have that one insanely reliable tool. Maybe it's your favorite kitchen appliance, a clunky old laptop, or that trusty power drill you've had forever that you just kind of expect to work until the end of time. And when it finally stops, well, it literally feels like the end of an era. Now, while it's super easy to get caught up in all that nostalgia, we really need to look at the hidden science behind this trusty workhorse. So how does a veteran machine like this actually work for so long? What exactly was happening inside that little plastic box for all those years? To truly appreciate its massive lifespan, we have to pop the hood and examine the mechanical heartbeat that kept Aang's underwater ecosystem thriving day in and day out. Well, tucked inside that little box is a brilliantly simple four-step process. Step 1. An electromagnetic motor activates. Now that motor's sole job leads us right to step 2, which is vibrating a rubber diaphragm. That rapid, constant vibration creates step 3, internal pressure. And finally, step 4, that pressure forcefully pushes air right out through the outlets. It's a wonderfully simple mechanical breakdown. For Aang's setup, this exact reliable process worked perfectly to run 2 air stones or a whole mix of filters and ornaments, all from a single unit. We're talking millions of vibrations, creating millions of bubbles, never missing a single beat until the very end. And this brilliantly illustrates a really important point. Because when the core machine finally stops, we're kind of forced to look at the rest of the system. As Aang points out, it isn't just the main pump that degrades over time. There's an entire infrastructure attached to it. So when we talk about equipment life cycles, we absolutely have to talk about collateral wear and tear. The supporting network surrounding the machine takes just as much of a beating as the machine itself. Think about it. You start with the ideal scenario, brand new, totally flexible, perfectly clear airline tubing. But the reality of long-term use is starkly different. Over time, that nice clear tubing turns incredibly stiff and discolored. Why does that happen? Well, Aang notes that it's actually due to the constant exposure to heat radiating from the pump, plus the water minerals from the tank itself. The environment literally hardens the infrastructure. So when that veteran pump finally dies, it usually means the hobbyist has to replace all these degraded, brittle tubes as well. It turns into a complete system overhaul. Which brings us right to the immediate and highly relatable problem Aang is facing. The veteran is dead, the tubes are stiff, so it's time for the backup. Aang actually has a similar replacement ready to go, but there's a pretty big catch. It is an incredibly strained replacement. Right out of the gate, this first backup has a rough, strained sound and pushes out really weak airflow. Imagine that anticlimax. You say this fond, emotional farewell to your tireless workhorse of many moons, you plug in the brand new backup, and it feels like it's on its last legs before it even starts doing its job. But here is where the story takes a delightfully humorous turn into the psychology of a truly dedicated hobbyist. A beginner? They might completely panic at a weak replacement pump. But someone who is writing part 256 of their fish-keeping journal, oh, they don't just have one backup. They have what I like to call the hobbyist safety net.
Aang takes us deep into the hidden corners of their home, specifically into the storeroom, where the real treasures are tucked away. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is the sheer scale of the preparation. This is a massive, hoarded arsenal of spare pumps Aang accumulated over the years. First, we have that strained, weak airflow backup we just talked about. But behind that, two absolute powerhouses, each with 4 outlets. And the crown jewel of the whole shebang, one massive single outlet unit that Aang admits could probably supply enough air for an entirely dedicated fish room. They bought all of this many moons ago and just tucked it away. It so perfectly captures that specific kind of over-preparation that happens when you are deeply invested in a hobby. You don't just buy a simple spare, you buy enough industrial equipment to run a public aquarium, just in case.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. We started with the solemn retirement of a veteran, battle-tested air pump. We broke down the precise mechanical heartbeat that kept it alive, explored the collateral damage to its plastic tubing, and finally uncovered the slightly absurd but wonderfully relatable safety net of a true enthusiast. Every tool has its limit. That's just an undeniable fact of physics and manufacturing. But it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought about our own habits. Think about your own passions, your own hobbies, your own work. What seemingly mundane objects are you deeply emotionally attached to? And perhaps more importantly, what incredibly overpowered massive units are currently hiding out of sight in your own backup stash?